you have a copy of your book right there, right? Thank you. We need to hold
I
that book.
also have a peacock and a panda, which I normally don't show, but because I have to keep this on the charger, people get to see parts of my house that are not intended. This is how much I love you. Give me Peter out of here. Oh yeah.
I love it. It looks good. But I want you to have your book. Okay, it's right there. I see 3 of them right there, but I need you to pull one. Right. Okay, good. Right.
Oh my God. Okay, listen, this is about you.
Please. We're going to go back and forth, and I want you to mostly talk about.
Okay, can you
wait a minute, hold on. Behave? Current events. I want to talk about current events. I want to talk about
that's
Aaron
fine.
Rodgers.
Okay, the current event will be when this iPad dies. So can you get this started?
And critical race theory. All right, good. All right.
Yes, sir.
All right. Welcome everyone to another PNP Live. My name is Bashan. I'm host of this Politics and Prose event. Before we get started, just a couple quick items I have to mention. The first is that if you have any questions for Professor Dyson, please place it in the Q&A box, which you can find towards the bottom of your screen. That'll just help us to facilitate any question and answers that you may want to have. In addition, throughout the event, you'll be able to go to the chat section where you'll find a link, which will take you directly to Politics and Prose website, where you can purchase a copy of Entertaining Race. We, of course, highly encourage you to do so, and thank you for your patronage, as that continues to help us bring you these live events. Entertaining Race is a testament to Professor Dyson's consistent celebration of the outsized impact of African-American culture and politics on this country. Black people were forced to entertain white people in slavery, have been forced to entertain the idea of race from the start, and must find entertaining ways to make race an object of national conversation. Michael Eric Dyson, a distinguished university professor of African American and Diaspora Studies, College of Arts and Science, and of Ethics and Society, Divinity School, and NEH Centennial Chair at Vanderbilt University, is one of America's premier public intellectuals and the author of numerous New York Times bestsellers, including Tears We Cannot Stop, What Truth Sounds Like, Jay-Z, and Long Time Coming. A winner of the 2018 Nonfiction Southern Book Prize, Dr. Dyson is also a recipient of 2 NAACP Image Awards and the 2020 Langston Hughes Festival Medallion. Former President Barack Obama has noted, quote, "Everybody who speaks after Michael Eric Dyson pales in comparison," end quote. Dr. Dyson will be in conversation with Ms. Tamron Hall, an Emmy Award-winning TV host, journalist, author, and philanthropist. She is the host and executive producer of the Emmy-nominated daytime television show Tamron Hall, which is produced and distributed in national syndication by Walt Disney Television. For her work on the show's first season, Tamron won the Daytime Emmy for Outstanding Informative Talk Show Host. Tamron Hall was also awarded the prestigious Gracie Award in its first season, which recognizes exemplary programming created by women. In October, Ms. Hall also became an author, releasing her first novel, As the Wicked Watch, the first in a thrilling new crime series. Without any further ado, Ms. Hall, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much. It is such an honor to participate in this conversation with all of you today. I can already see some of the comments coming in, and I am absolutely thrilled to be speaking with See, I was about to lie and say you were a nice person, and that's why that fell down. I was about to say one of the nicest people that I know, and then my iPad said, "Shame the truth." What is it? You're the minister here. Michael Eric Dyson is one of the most amazing human beings that I've ever met. I'm not going to lie and say he's the nicest, but he is an incomparable intellectual, a phenomenal father, and a true advocate and storyteller of our story. I have known Michael Eric Dyson now for over a decade. And with each passing year, I have to tell you, my life is enriched more and more when he speaks, and most important, when he writes. And that's why we're here today to talk about an amazing book, an amazing creation, if you will, because it's bigger than a book. It's more than essays. It is like the art that's hanging in my home, inappropriately, a panda on a DJ's table, but it is art at its finest, and it's art that will live a lifetime. So congratulations, friend, first of all, on yet another incredible and unforgettable offering to the public. How do you feel?
Thank you so much. To be in conversation with Tamron Hall, the most remarkable host on television operating today. And I don't say that because she's one of my bestest and dearest friends ever. and a remarkable human being, despite that gruff exterior that tends to alienate all but the most stout-hearted. She is a dear treasure of a woman and is so committed to us and what we do. Trust me, I've seen her behind the scenes. Y'all don't even know, but you do see the results. A woman who's able to go from being a host talking about cooking to talking about murder to talking about race and politics and culture. So I'm glad. So half this is going to be about her book. I'm telling you right now.
No.
And we ain't going to talk about my book. We want to talk about contemporary issues. That's what I want to talk about.
We are, and the words are too kind that you offer, but I have to start off with the title of this book because it is one that stops you in your track. And for those who are not writers, the title is something that the author labors over because it means something. While the words certainly are the story, the title sets the stage. It's the introduction, if you will, to what you're about to read. Dr. Dyson, Entertaining Race, Performing Blackness in America. Why that title?
Yes, ma'am. That's a great point you're making, actually. The great Southern historian C. Vann Woodward said a title is a contract between a speaker, or in this case, a writer, and his or her audience. He talked about it as a writer. And you're so right. I'm making a contract here. And I wanted to talk about Black performance because I want to talk about how Black people have had to entertain race. First of all, we've had to be entertaining to the dominant white culture, from the slave ship to the plantation to the performance stage. And I opened the book, as you point to, in that opening introduction, where a young Black slave girl is hung upside down from one leg with a loincloth barely around her midriff, and she is beat to death. At trial, Captain John Kimber is taken to trial. This is in 1792. He's taken to trial because he killed her and another young Black girl. And they ask, what the deal is. And basically because she refused to perform, to get up and be danced along with the other slaves. And so I took that as the opening salvo, so to speak, of what we do as a Black people. We have been forced from the get-go to entertain. And we've had to entertain the idea of race constantly when we're making lemonade outside, when we're in barbecuing in Oakland, California, when we're in Starbucks. People blame Black people. You people always are obsessed with race. No, we can't escape it because you constantly remind us of who we are by something you do, some attitude, some disposition, some smart alecky remark on a network that you don't work for that spews venom and stupidity day long. So we've had to entertain the idea of race from the get-go. And then finally, we got to be entertaining about how we speak about race, because people take our words out of context and they say, oh, no, not this again. And so we've had to find interesting and fresh ways to engage it. And I talk about Black performance because I think all of us as Black people, not just the Beyoncés and the Jay-Z's and the Arethas, and I know that you and I spent many a day with the great Queen, Aretha Franklin, sharing love with her and her birthday parties and her vacations and the like. But not just those people, but everyday Black people have to perform too. When you go to work, is that your hair? Can I touch it? Is that who you really are? Did you write this paper? So I wanted to gather all of that together in this book.
This is your 24th book in 28 years. I mean, that is in itself not only a testament to your dedication to the readers and the people who consume what you create, but to the message, your commitment to, as you say, you are in this. This is these bodies of work are in you, and they're pouring out of you at such a rapid rate. How do you sustain that?
Well, as you know, because you're one of the hardest working human beings we know, your talk show, then your stuff on ID Network, and then the novel. We're going to get to that novel soon because I'm fascinated by the story behind it. But you know what it is. You're driven by your passion. You're driven by your willingness to serve, by your desire to make stuff plain. Look, I was a teen father. I didn't go to college until I was 21 years old, the age most people are graduating. I was hustling on the streets, doing stuff, living on welfare, blah, blah, blah. And then, so by the time I got to college, I knew what I wanted to do, so to speak. And when I went to get a PhD, it wasn't to impress other scholars. I wasn't trying to let me do this to speak, gobbledygook and obscurantist dialogue to other people. That's good, I do that. But that ain't what my main role is. My main role is getting a PhD is to help my people, to help America, to help the world understand complex issues, complicated ideas. and conflicts and tensions by the clearest examples of intelligence and response to social problems that I could muster. So that drives me to write books about whether it's Bill Cosby or whether it's Barack Obama talking about Tupac Shakur or speaking about Jay-Z. Black masculinity in particular has driven me, but also I wrote a book called Why I Love Black Women. And in this book, all of the quotes that head the sections are from Black women. So I'm always trying to make an argument about foregrounding brilliant, intelligent, wonderful Black women, bringing Black people along to talk about serious issues and to represent many of their viewpoints. And not only just to represent them, I mean, you shouldn't just comfort people, you got to argue with them too. And you got to engage in serious conversation and dialogue. So that's what I'm trying to do.
Well, you talk about, comfort and arguing and being willing to stand mightily on the things you believe. I've noticed over the years where different hosts have then tried to pair you with another Black person who disagrees with you as if that's an antidote or as if that's your kryptonite, right? Because you put you with a white individual, a conservative or far right wing. That is an easy battle. And I've seen hosts clearly think, aha, I know. The kryptonite to this Superman is putting a Black male conservative to say what he is saying is wrong. What do you make of that?
Yeah, that's so brilliant how you frame that. And here's the point. I ain't gonna never deny your Blackness if you're conservative or reactionary. That ain't the point. You can be Black all day long. You're still Black and wrong. Just because you're Black, you ain't getting a pass. Black folk don't give me a pass because I'm Black. They demand that I justify what I do all the time. And sometimes I agree and sometimes I disagree. But I ain't scared of Black people, which is why I love them. So I'm going to engage in conversation. Putting a Black person next to me, Glenn Lowry on, say, Bill Maher, when you're sitting there, this guy, I know, bless his heart, he got dusted off, brought out of the tombs of conservatism, brought to bear, and you're making arguments as a ventriloquist for some ideas in dominant white culture that they love to hear a Black person do. I major in that. I major in deconstructing Negroes who are addicted to white approval or the articulation by substitute vicariously for ideas that they would love many of conservative white people to say, but don't have the cultural standing to do so, so they find a Black mouthpiece to do so. Or these Black people genuinely agree with it. I don't care. The bottom line is I ain't scared. I ain't scared because being Black doesn't mean that we all agree. Doesn't mean that we step in the same way. Clarence Thomas is going to be Black until he dies, and he's going to be Black and wrong as far as I'm concerned. So that race, what people don't understand about Black people, and you know this so well, Tamron, Ms. Hall, you understand that just because you Black don't mean you do Black and think Black and respond in a way in which a great deal of Black people do. What did the great saying said, all my skin folk ain't my kinfolk. So we understand that already. We don't have to adhere to a narrow conception of Blackness at all.
You talk about performing for white approval. What the range of subjects that you've covered in this book, from King to Kobe, Beyonce to Amiri Baraka, from August Wilson to George Floyd, that range is compelling for a number of reasons, but they are all people who are greatly now applauded, or in the case of George Floyd, the visible pain that we saw among some white people after what happened and the crowds that were diverse. None of this, in the case of Beyonce, was for white approval, but at the end of the day, she's one of the wealthiest performers in the world because of white approval. Kobe Bryant, one of the greatest athletes in the world, his jersey is worn by, prior to his heartbreaking death, which you talked about on my show, more white kids wore it. So there was this, they weren't doing it for white approval, but white approval could not resist their greatness.
That's a great point. That's a great point. That's, you remind me, Ms. Hall, of what the great Chris Rock said. He said, we're not trying to cross over to white culture. We're trying to cross over to white dollars. We want to be successful. We want everybody to support us. You didn't write your tremendous first novel, and we're going to talk about that next because I want to get deep into that. You didn't write that for just Black people, even though the subject matter is in the news. When we talk about Black women, when they disappear, nothing, or zilch, or crickets. White girls disappear, God bless them. They should be concerned. We should be concerned about them. The whole world is on fire. And in your novel, you address that. So right after I finish this, I want to get to that. But having said that, Chris Rock said, we're trying to cross over to that. The support. We want the support. I write books. I want everybody to read them, not just Black people. But having said that, there's a way in which we can remain true to what we believe and who we are. And we're always shattering narrow conceptions of what it means to be Black. You're doing it as the most remarkable new host on television that we've seen in quite some time. You're clearly a Black woman. Ain't nobody doubting that. And yet you have an urbane, sophisticated appeal to a broad range of human beings. They understand what you talk about. And you perform a service for us because, Black people do, okay. Black people scuba dive. Black people do stuff that you don't think Black people do, because you have opened the range of perception of who we are as a people. That's what I'm trying to do with these books. It's extremely important to talk about these figures and to speak about them in a serious way. But I do want to ask you this one question before you jump to the next one. I got to ask you, given the fact that it's almost like you were prescient in writing your book that came out in October, given Gabby Petito, tell us what drove you to write that novel with that subject matter, with the Jordan Manning. I love that title. You got to tell me who came up with that name. I mean, how did you come up
the
with
name that? Jordan Manning, the character, which you can't see my book because I have terrible iPad.
Hold it up so people can see it. Because all my people were saying, I hope you're going to talk about Tamron Hall's book now. No, I said, yes, we are. Yes, we are.
Well, it's called As the Wicked Watch, what you said, my first novel. And it was inspired by two cases that I covered in 1997. The deaths of two 11-year-old girls, one in Texas, one in Chicago, not related. The one in Texas was a young white girl, and in Chicago, a young Black girl. But watching these cases be covered very differently. And for the reasons that we all continue to discuss. So that was 1997. And I wanted this mystery novel to help me heal from covering so many years of crime. And this character, Jordan Manning, Michael Jordan, Peyton Manning, because I couldn't think of two more opposites in so many ways, but still great at what they do. That's where I came up with her name. But she really was kind of therapy for me to talk about some of the things that I both witnessed and participated in the news media. And she ends up following a hotline tip from a desperate mother pleading for her help because her child's missing. I wrote this a year and a half prior to, as you pointed out, Gabby Petito, and the conversation that we're having now. And just last week, I had Jelani Day's mother, Carmen, on my show. And I said, could I have ever imagined that my book would come out in such a relevant, timely way? But clearly I could have imagined it because I wrote it. And it was based on the repeat rinse cycle that we see over and over as it relates to when Black and brown women go missing. And this is the first in the series. I'm already 4 chapters in. I will not make 24 and 28 years as you've done, but that was the inspiration for that book. But I also wanted to give people a peek inside what it's like to be a Black woman, the one of one in newsrooms, even to this day of 2021. And that's what you do in this incredible book, where you give us a peek inside very specific people and your point of view down to, as I said, Aretha Franklin, which you pointed out, and Beyonce and the like. But what I'm curious about is that the critical race conversation talk about timeliness as it relates to your book itself, a speech that you gave at Howard University on critical race, well before everyone else was talking about critical race in the way that they are, in the very wrong way. So you also work, is it clairvoyant then that we would be here when you gave that speech?
Wow, that's so kind of you. And I got some more questions. So I'm gonna answer yours, and then we're gonna trade back and forth because I got a million questions to ask you about. Where did you get the darn time? Look, the 8 million jobs you're doing.
I
want to answer that, then I'll get back to that. So I did give this speech at Howard University the day after my 55th birthday, and you were at my 55th birthday party. So it was great there in New York. So you were inspiring me to go speak, and I had to say, oh my God, I got to get up the next day, take a train and get to DC and give this speech off the top of the dome, which I did, but I've been thinking about it and wrestling with it. And Kimberly Crenshaw was there that day, as a matter of fact, in the audience. So look, we know that the right wing, Christopher Rufo, let's even be more specific, a young white guy who went to Georgetown, was reading all this anti-racist literature. And he says, oh, here's something in common. They keep mentioning this critical race theory stuff. He went and read it. This is perfect. I can come up with a foil to, quote, wokeness and to progressive Black thought. And I can use this to galvanize white people to spook out, against Black people and thinking what they're doing is so wrong. And it's evil genius, but it's wrong. And he came up with a way to really tar and feather the notion of critical race theory, because it don't mean what anybody thinks it means in the mainstream for the most part on the right. We know the word critical race theory comes from something called critical theory. A bunch of Jewish intellectuals were in Germany were thinking together in the Frankfurt School. Herbert Marcuse, who came to America and was the teacher of Angela Davis, Max Horkheimer, he said critical theory means this. The word critical in critical theory means we're looking for ways to liberate people from conditions that enslave them. Who's against that? That's what critical meant. And then when because of the Holocaust and Hitler's rise in Germany, many of them fled Germany and some came to America. Many of these Jewish intellectuals of critical theory taught at historically Black colleges and universities. People don't know that. So the relationship between Blacks and Jews and that kind of critical theory, critical race theory is really hidden and masked, but it's really real. So all critical race theory is trying to say, Kimberly Crenshaw, Derek Bell, Charles Lawrence, Marie Matsuda, and a whole range of legal scholars, let's not talk about sentiment, let's talk about system and structure. Let's not just talk about individuals, let's talk about institutions. That's all they're saying. It's not individual private beliefs, it's also public performance of racial intolerance and inequity. So that's what we're doing. People have taken that and run with it. You're worried about white kids. Let me say this, Ms. Hall. It amazes me when I hear people go, you're trying to make white kids feel guilty and make them feel bad. And you're trying to teach them a pedagogy of hating their own parents. And we're afraid they're going to hate us. That ain't what we're saying at all. We're saying that people should come to grips with the historic forms of inequity. But it's interesting to me, but you never ask the question, what are Black kids experiencing? They have to listen to Fox News daily, berate them and undermine them and undercut them. You don't talk about the fact that Black and brown kids are getting kicked out of school at 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 and 9 years old. You don't talk about the degree to which studies have been done that suggest that young Black kids are seen as older than they are, so you can justify your adultification of them and therefore dismissing their childhoods and treating them like adults and holding them to account. So unless you're willing to do that, you're not serious about what happens to young kids. If young Black kids are not too young to experience racism, young white kids are not too young to learn about it. Let's do it together.
Don't you think, though, they already know exactly what you've talked about? I mean, I saw Lori Hackett a comment already in our system where she said they don't even teach African-American history in its truest form in schools. So
Absolutely.
When people like yourself, intellectuals, or even every parent that knows the truth says, actually, that's not what critical race theory is. And here's what it is. And the lie keeps being accepted. That always tells me they don't want the truth. They don't want it. I've seen you on The View. I've seen you on Colbert. I've seen you on every Jimmy that has a talk show at the end of the day that I can't even remember anymore. I've seen you everywhere. And you've said this and explained this thoroughly. And at some point, isn't it quite clear that the answer, which is the truth, is not what people want to be fed?
Right.
Or certain day people.
That's so brilliantly stated. And you're right. They don't want to know. It's like A Few Good Men, the Jack Nicholson character. Truth, you can't handle the truth. They don't want to know the truth because
I have to interrupt you because you surprised me. I thought you were going to go for Doughboy, Ice Cube. They don't know, they don't show, they don't care about what's going on. That's where I thought you were going, but you have not surprised me yet again, which is why I love knowing you for a decade because I never know where this is going to go.
And Tamron Hall, sophisticated urban witty, hitting you with the Doughboy, with the Detroit Tigers baseball game.
Not that hard. It's not that hard. Not that
Do it
hard.
Like that, right?
And we'll dovetail into that in a minute, but go ahead.
So here we are. Right. Doughboy. Either they don't know, They don't show, or they don't care. As he sits there having a conversation after having gunned down another young Black man, and yet the broader system of hurt and pain that we are confronted with. You're right, they don't care. They're not interested. They're not invested. They don't want to know the truth. Because here's the question I ask. Oh, okay. So you say that white parents, that critical race theory is a problem, and how do you teach Black history? Great. What's your program? What's your agenda? Where's your curriculum?
Yeah.
What you be talking about? We know that Texas.
I think it's very simple when you and I've talked about this, because I just want to bring this up. I mean, First of all, in Germany, that's like saying you don't teach the Holocaust in German schools. Of course you do. And it is against the law to deny the Holocaust. So you don't think that there are German children whose parents and lineage tied back to the very people who took the lives of millions of Jews? But they don't say, now we're going to make everybody who's German feel horrible if you bring up this Holocaust. They don't. It's taught, and it is against the law to deny it.
That's why you're the one. That's why you're the one. I'm taking that and I'm acting like I came up with that. When I have to go on another show, I'm going to act like I came up with that now. But it's so true. It's so true. Like literally, I hope y'all heard what Ms. Hall said. It is against the law to deny the Holocaust there. And by the way, Confederate statues, they ain't got no statues of Hitler all around Germany. That's against the law. They ain't doing it, dog. So the point is, you're absolutely right. That people are invested in a kind of amnesia that would deny legitimacy and culpability. All right, they don't want to say, because look, to tell the truth is to say your great granddaddy and your great grandmas and your great great grandma were doing some stuff that's foul and nefarious, and not just them, not that far back, as recently as 50 years ago and 30 years ago, practices that are destructive. So I think you're absolutely right, but that's what you do in your book with Macy James. Let's get back to your book, Macy James, because
no, we're not going to get into
hold on. Let me one more question about Macy James.
And you mean Jordan Manning? Macy James is the person she's looking for. Jordan Manning is our girl.
Macy James is the girl who's missing, and they're looking because Macy James is not regarded with the requisite amount of curiosity. The culture doesn't respect who she is as a human being. Speak to us, please, because I think it's related to what we just said. The way in which Macy James is not seen as worthy of respect, worthy of being looked for, is part and parcel of a racist network that disallows the humanity and the intelligence of Black people to be taken for granted. Please speak to that, seriously.
Well, I think it ties into what you talked about, critical race. When I was touring, just as you are with promoting my book, people kept asking me the question, why do you think Black children aren't the lead? And I refuse to answer that because we know why. It's the same reason. Why do we believe that the critical race theory debate, or whatever you want to call it, has risen to the point of people going to physical blows in front of children in school board meetings, harkening back to the images that we saw in Little Rock and in New Orleans when schools for the first time saw Black children being brought in? That's some of what those images look like. Families, parents fighting in front of the kids they claim to be protecting. I think it is the very same thing. You don't want to digest the truth because you can win with the lie. So they can win certain networks with millions and millions of dollars and billions of dollars and anchors that make 10, 20, 30 million more than you and I have ever made in our careers. And certainly we deserve those dollars. But they are able to win with the lie. So why would the truth be valuable? It's not. And so when people ask me about why is it, do you believe that, you know, if an attractive white blonde woman is missing, how does that become the lead story? You know why. You know that there's a value on a certain look. Because by the way, I make the point as well, socioeconomic. It is also what they refer to as telegenic. If she wasn't a particularly attractive, or John Bonet, where everyone was engrossed in their wealth. I mean, when I did crime stories for a long time, I would get so irritated when we would have a script that said, you know, in an affluent suburban community, as if it couldn't happen there. Well, clearly it did. That's why I'm standing there with my microphone, because it happened there. But this notion that, again, there's this value level. But the answer, quite honestly, to the reason why the lead is not a Jelani Day is obvious. There's a value or higher value on the imagery and the storyline of a young, white, attractive girl missing. And what's so heartbreaking, and as I discussed in this novel, which is based, I mean, it's a fictionalized account of things that have happened. In the middle are families. You have poor Gabby Petito's family who have to stop their search to say, we don't want her just search for, we want everyone.
Right.
And then Jelani Day's mother and others have to beg for coverage. They become collateral damage of the mistake the media continues to make. And here we are with your conversation on critical race. The collateral damage becomes our children, because then we're saying, well, then what is that you have to offer if this critical race conversation is not one you want to have? What are your offerings?
Right,
And there
right.
are crickets, and the collateral damage becomes the next generation, which brings me to something that you do so remarkably, whether it's with Ta-Nehisi Coates and others. You continue to celebrate the next generation of Black intellectuals in a way that I think is breathtakingly beautiful, because I know I'm now 50, you're 50, 100,000 years old, but we are able now to genuinely discuss legacy. And I'm sure that's very surreal for you, having been the product of a great legacy of others. Now you are your legacy.
Bless you for that. I appreciate that. And I hope you got those Depends I sent you through the mail, not for your child. But no, you're absolutely
going
right.
out yet.
And we're gonna get back to your novel, because I got something else to ask you too about
go.
as who are, because I want to know, as the Wicked Watch, right? I mean, both of us are dealing with that in many ways in terms of being in a place where people who benefit from evil operations, evil structures, derive extraordinary advantage. And I want to talk about that. But you're right. It's important to talk to younger people and to engage them. When I started off, I was on the cover of the New Yorker magazine, and 2 years after I got my PhD in 95, I got mine in 93, with Cornel West, with Derek Bell, and with Bell Hooks. Now I'm writing New York Times bestsellers with Ta-Nehisi Coates and hopefully Nicole Hannah-Jones next week and so on. But my point is, I'm a long distance runner. I've been doing this for a minute, dog. And please, I don't want to be like Baby, put some respect on my name, but I'm saying that's what I do. You know what I'm saying? I write books like Brothers Write Hooks. That's what I do. So the thing is that it's extremely important to open myself up to them, to listen to their critiques, to challenge them, to be challenged by them, to carry that baton, because we have to pass that baton on. I mean, you're so young, even though you claim to be 50. I want to see your birth certificate, because you might be 32.
I'm 51. I'm 51.
You might be 32. You might be 32, but I know you're a lovely mother, and I know she ain't but 50, so she can't have no 50-year-old child. So the thing is that because you have also mentored younger people, you've also talked to younger people, you've been as gracious and as hospitable to people, never jealous, never envious, because what's for you is for you. And what you can do, nobody can be Tamron Hall, because nobody is that highly intelligent, able to switch from journalism on a hard news scene and then come in and talk about cupcakes and about children and about families and making it all. And by the way, on the ID network, hosting a show that deals with hardcore murder, and then now writing a novel. That kind of fluidity cannot be taken for granted. But I want to ask you this for real. In terms of As the Wicked Watch, right? When we read your novel and you see all of the shenanigans behind the scenes and the people are doing stuff and the people you expect the good to come from are doing things that are subtly hostile. Talk to us about then that title, As the Wicked Watch. Who are indeed the powers that be that have the influence to shape what we see and what we believe?
Well, they are the powers that be that, for example, it took how many years for Joanne Reed to become an anchor on MSNBC? At one point, Don Lemon was the only African-American host of a primetime cable news show, when we know the great number of Black and brown people who consume cable news, particularly on MSNBC and CNN. I'm the first Black woman to host the Today Show in its 60-year history. So while I won't assign the word wicked to those people who made those decisions, I will assign a systemic behavior that taints what kids see every day. We just had Nichelle Turner on my show, my daytime show, and she talked about seeing an anchor when she was in Columbia, Missouri growing up. Nichelle was 12, and she saw this woman and said, I can do that. And all these years later, she's the first Black woman to host Entertainment Tonight. Think about that when you think about the number of great entertainers who probably sustain that content. And not that she's there because she knows Eddie Murphy or whomever. She's there because it is culturally enriching to have her there. Plus, she's enormously talented at what she does. Nevertheless, we surprised her with this journalist who Michelle admired when she was a kid. And they both burst into tears. And it was a beautiful moment, but it's a reminder, whether it is sitcom, whether it is music, whether it is news, that cultural representation is still absent. And the question is why? And one of the things that you bring up in your essays in the book, Nas and One Love, and the origins of hip hop and the complexities and the co-opting and all of those things that happen in the most original form of modern Black culture creation, and why that song means so much to you. Right.
No, you're right. And yeah, that was a beautiful moment. Nichelle is a wonderful young lady. She and Kevin are doing a great job on entertainment tonight. To see a Black man and a Black woman like leading, because as you said, I mean, think about it. Our content sustains America. That's what I argue in the book too, that Black performance is the measure of the American soul. Martin Luther King Jr. was performing when he knew that Bull Connor was a buffoon, but he was a bigot. And if I could capture him unleashing those water hoses and those police dogs on Black people, that will change how America sees us. And I'll be darned if while they were eating their food, they were looking at the news going, this is barbaric. This can't occur. And so John Lewis walking across, fighting the police to walk across the bridge, that's performance at its height. So I think we are the measure of the American soul in that way. And our performances have fed and fueled what they see. Nas was important to me because he's writing letters to a prisoner in that song and receiving letters back in his debut album, 1994, Illmatic, and One Love is the song on there. That's what prisoners say when they say goodbye, one love. And so my brother, having served 30 years in prison, died in prison, 30 years there, more than half his life for, we believe, a murder he didn't commit. But at the same time, he was convicted by an all-Black jury, by the way. So when people say, Black people, yes, they do. Every day they do, right? And so, which is a tragedy that we have, and I want to ask you about this, 11 white jurors, you know where I'm going, and one Black juror in the Ahmaud Arbery trial. Can you please, Ms. Tamron Hall, because you cover this stuff daily, tell me how in 2021 that can occur, that kind of Jim Crow logic can happen to us today?
Because we've allowed the smoke and mirrors to cloud our eyes. This is not new. And unfortunately, again, I've covered a lot of crimes and I've covered courtroom battles, and there have been phenomenally written pieces on this very subject matter that keeps getting ignored. And we ignored ourselves. How Black and brown jurors are systematically, for no legal reason, removed only to stack the odds either for your conviction or for the acquittal of someone else. It's it's stunning how sad. I have to tell you, there are things that obviously break my heart. And that is one of the issues in current news that makes me sick to my stomach, how it takes this to remind us again of the problem. And then when Kyle Rittenhouse likely, whatever, then it'll fade away. We should be demanding this change because it is impacting young Black and brown men and women, and they're getting these disproportionate sentences for minor things. And then when there's a big high profile case like this, you're like, how did it happen? Well, we keep the smoke and mirrors of the networks and what they cover, and making sure that these stories, it's kind of like, voting rights. We can't just let things be like Halley's Comet or the cicadas coming from the ground. We only talk about them every 100 years, every 7 years. You have to pressure the networks consistently, not just for that window of elections. And this is one of those issues with jurors, that it flares up with a Kyle Rittenhouse case, and then it goes back into the ground for 100 years until there is a consequence.
Yeah. No, that's a powerful point. And I'll tell you, I don't know about you. I sit there when I see the replays of that jury and I see the father and son team tag team on this young man. And the tape.
The Arbery trial. I'm so sorry. I got this because both I'm conflating both. I'm so sorry.
You're right.
The Ahmaud Arbery, I've spoken with his mother, and that is, again, both are problematic. And Kyle Rittenhouse is the judge. So how do these types of judges continue to exist?
Oh my God.
And it does dovetail into the juries and the jury selection process, because it is another glaring example of the judicial system and the disgusting flaws. So when someone says to me, believe the law, believe this, well, I'm like, are you kidding me? One is in the Midwest and one is the South, but both are rigged against the people who really deserve the justice. Kyle Rittenhouse has a judge that clearly is advocating for him.
Oh my God.
And in the Ahmaud Arbery, you have defense attorneys saying things that are the most stunning things I've ever heard.
We don't need any black pastors in this room. Al Sharpton, no more.
And you imagine the hubris to be able to say that out loud. And by the way, going back to the book, your book, the entertaining for whom? Because that statement was white entertainment for a certain type of person.
Yes.
Knowing when you utter those words, it's going to go viral. Who are you entertaining for? Likely to run for some office as some extreme right conservative that you can then point to. These things are all entertainment for whom and for what?
Yeah,
because that judge and that attorney are entertaining, but what do they want from those performances?
To see, and that's such a great point. And here's the irony. This is the kind of stuff critical race theory was invented for, right? They were legal scholars and they were saying, oh, you're telling us to go to a court system and a jury system that's already rigged against us. So we're saying that beneath all of that performance of justice is really Jim Crow logic, is anti-Black sentiment, and it's not in our favor. Jim Crow, you got 11 white jurors in a county that is 55% Black. And Ahmaud Arbery was hunted down like an animal when they showed the tape of that white man saying, we trapped him and he was running like a rat. I'm telling you, and then you wonder why we're angry. And then you wonder why we are so frustrated with a system that has been so rigged against us. And yet, Ms. Hall, you know this better than most as well. The humanity of Black people never ceases to amaze me. We ain't bitter. We ain't trying to tear your country down. We ain't trying to use terrorist tactics against you, poison your water stream, stuff that others have done when they're upset with America.
I think the reason why, because it is our country. I mean, it's like when we say we're not tearing your country, we built your country. And without us, there would be no country. And so it is kind of like when, for example, there's an outbreak and they say, why are they burning down the Walmarts or whatever in their neighborhood? They're actually not our stores in many cases, but this is our country. And so I just did a Veterans Day show, beautiful stories of veterans, Black, brown, and white. And the reason why I made certain that my team cast that wide net is because too often my father served in the military for 30 years, but the picture of a military person is a white male. And that is why they were able to weaponize the military against Black athletes in the way, because someone says you're disavowing, you're disgracing the military. What is the military? In the minds of many, that is a white male. And so it could not possibly be Black military men and women who were the inspiration behind the knee in the first place, even though we've now been told that story accurately a million times. No one wants to believe, again, that is the truth when the lie has already been dispelled. But the money is in the lie, not the cure. The truth is the cure, and we already know where that is. And so brings me to Aaron Rodgers, because I know that you've been ready to talk about it a lot. And so I don't know what your views are on it. I have probably some assumptions about it, but what are your views on this? Because he is playing tomorrow.
Yeah, he is playing tomorrow. Kyrie Irving ain't. Now, and look, Kyrie Irving, I was critical of Kyrie Irving. Y'all know the basketball player for the Brooklyn Nets who refuses to, but at least he has a principled position. I think it's wrong. I think it's ill-informed. I think Kyrie at one point believed the earth was flat. And I get it. All right. And I love Kyrie, but a socially conscientious young man stood with Black Lives Matter and the like. So he's got skin in the game. I just think he's ill-informed on this point, but he was honest. I haven't been vaccinated. I'm trying to speak for people who have been forced to be vaccinated. I argue with him, but he's honest. Aaron Rodgers, a white man, white quarterback, enormously gifted, misleads us to believe that he's been, yes, I've been vaccinated. I've been immunized. I'm sorry.
Immunized.
So you playing with words, homeboy. You're leading us to believe that you got jabbed in the arm. And then he said, and others who are not, I don't want to judge them. Oh, you are the others. So he misleads us. Then when he gets caught, then he quotes Martin Luther King Jr. Oh my God, that you should never, unjust laws you should not agree with. You ain't against no unjust law, bro, because I didn't hear you speak anything about Black Lives Matter in your particular NFL arena when it was going on. I didn't see you stand up for Colin Kaepernick. I didn't see you call them to account. Now you're saying you're a victim of a woke mob. This is the ultimate example of an unconsciously privileged white male who is able to do what he does at the height of his craft, undeniably talented to no end, and yet manipulates public sentiment to his advantage while distorting the movements that have arisen to challenge racial injustice by calling them a woke mob. I think he's one of the worst examples, and will play tomorrow without thinking $300,000 is what the team was fined, but he does not get fined anything and doesn't lose a bunch of money. I think it's pretty ridiculous.
Do you think it is unconscious or conscious? I mean, I actually think he knows that he's above the law and above everyone else, and not just because of his skill set. And I do agree with you that, it was a deliberate manipulation of the facts. And what was striking was the clear knowledge that the NFL or his team had and the decision to protect. Because what we do know is, as a media person, everything gets leaked. Everyone knows something. And the things that don't get leaked are fascinating to me. And that he submitted, according to him, 500 pages. If he had been Black, those pages would have been released, and the doctors and whatnot.
Oh my God!
Made it to ESPN would have breaking news reading from it. But I am struck by his then clear decision to not wear a mask, to walk around, including, according to reports, a Halloween party with its team. And what I think is also under discussed, and I don't watch a lot of sports, honestly, I've been doing my own show and whatnot, but now that his doctors have been proven wrong, and the whatever hundreds of thousands of dollars he spent to change the blood, to do whatever they did, he hasn't said that it's quackery. So quackery. I don't understand that, because I mean, it's like he's been, and then he said, well, I consulted with Joe Rogan, and I just find it fascinating how he's not being told to shut up and play sports, because that's remarkable to me, that he is on and he's quoting science that clearly did not work. He then skirts the accepted normal behavior of wearing a mask to protect others, especially when you're not inoculated, you have not been given the vaccine. And then he hangs out with people and then says, I got my health tips from Joe Rogan, who probably is an amazing podcast person. I don't watch it or listen to it, but he's probably great. He's got the highest contract in history. So I'm assuming it's really, really good. But that's his conciliary. Exactly. He's not being told to shut up and play the ball.
LeBron, shut up and play ball. Shut up and dribble. Be quiet. Don't speak about you. That's a great point that very few people have raised. So it's all right for Aaron Rodgers to then have pseudoscientific analysis be the predicate for his equally ineffectual medical practice, and he ain't called crazy. He ain't called quackery. And Kyrie Irving,
that's what I'm intrigued by. Well, I think that's what your point is. Why isn't he the same labels being placed upon him? Also, again, and I to your point, I am vaccinated. You can't come in our home if you're not vaccinated, and that is my view, and that's how I stand, and I stand on it. But Kyrie Irving did say the truth out loud with facing the consequences of it.
Yes, he did.
That doesn't mean I have to respect him for that, but when we're comparing the two,
ain't no comparison. Right.
lied and not just lied, manipulated in a
Yes.
way to deceive at the risk of
Absolutely.
harming others, at the risk of harming others.
Can't be better stated. There it is. It's brilliantly holized.
Yeah.
That's
Okay,
Tameronized
we're
truth.
going back. I want to go back to the book, because before we wrap up here, I think it is refreshing and revealing in the book that I think for the first time people get to see your sermon and get to read your words. Because you are an ordained Baptist preacher for 40 years now, I think people forget that, because we have become so consumed with the leading thought person in our community, the thought leader in our community. But you have these two worlds. How do you reconcile them, and why now did you decide to put the sermons in this essay?
Yeah, no, that's thank you very much for that. And you know what? And I'm glad you recognize the tension, because there is tension, right? Because stuff, and I'm talking in the classroom, you go to some churches, what? Because I was early on this, anti-homophobic stuff. I wrote about it 20 some years ago in my book, Race Rules, and spoke about an Afro-homosexuality and what that would mean, and trying to embrace queer people and the like. So again, I haven't always been on the acceptable side of Black thought for some Black people. And as a minister, I'm trying to reconcile what I think and believe as a free-thinking human being and an independent analytical, independent analysis of situations, and a critical intellectual analysis that sometimes, rubs up against what faith might tell one to do. So I've always tried to practice a fearsomely open-minded kind of faith that says, we don't want to reduce God to our privileges and bigotries and our perspectives, right? Don't make God co-sign your bigotry. God is bigger than the stuff we talk about here. So for me, it's been a pleasure to, I had my burning before I had my learning, as they say. So I was ordained as a minister before I got a PhD from Princeton. So I never forget that. But at the same time, I try to bring that critical edge to the pulpit and to my thought and to theology and to the art of creating sermons, to both embrace and comfort people, but to challenge them, to ask them. For instance, and I'll end by saying this. I was in Cleveland preaching a couple of years ago, and a Black woman came up to me at the church, and she says, you're going to hell. And I said, I tried to play. I said, well, dang. I said, did Jesus tell you that? Because I just spoke to Jesus this morning. He ain't said nothing about me going to hell. I said, man, I guess I ain't got to watch my cholesterol now if I'm going to hell. I said, ma'am, why am I going to hell? She says, you know why you're going to hell? You're going to hell because you said God created gay people. I said, and you think I'm going to hell? And you're a polytheist? You think there's a God for gay people and one for straight? I said, either God made everybody or God ain't made nobody. What, did God take Wednesday off? Hey, it's tough out here creating human beings. And then a lesser God made some gay people? I said, look, stop it. I said, Black people need to be the last people trying to judge another hurt human being's sexual orientation and who they are. Either we all have sinned and come short of the glory of God, or we ain't. And I believe we do. So therefore, redemption is in the offing for all of us. So I believe there ought to be tremendous tension between those two worlds. But at the same time, ultimately, I embrace my ancestors' faith, even if I don't have their theology. And that's what I try to do.
It's beautiful. When you look at, I won't ask you what is the takeaway, because there's so many in each of these essays and each of the people that you talk about, but what excites you most about this book in a way that the others perhaps have not or did in different ways? Well,
you just ended on it. Like, people, you're a preacher? Now, that's probably because of my, disrespectable behavior that you've helped foment in the common consciousness of the world. But other than that, they're like, wow, we hear you do stuff on TV, but I don't ever come see you preach. So to at least have a couple sermons there, and I'm going to, I think soon, either the next book or the book after the next one will be a book of sermons of stuff that I've talked about and preached about for years. And so I want people to know, yes, I'm a person of faith too. I believe in spirituality. Because at the end of the day, I'd rather be good than smart. I'd rather have the right thing to do than to be the smartest person in the room, because you have to have a moral center and an ethical consciousness. And that's what I ultimately believe. So that was the fun thing about it. And knowing that I could talk to you as one of my people to engage.
We're almost out of time because we did start, full disclosure, we started late because I could not get my little iPad holder together. That's why you're looking up my head right now. And so
tell the truth. We had to pay you $100,000 just to do this. Go on, tell the truth. Tell the truth.
Listen, I do have to buy another peacock, so therefore, no. But you, does anything frighten you? Because you seem so just. There is a confidence and a swagger, as you would say, that not even Jay-Z, somebody that I know looks up to you and you look up to him, could match. Does anything frighten you?
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, dying before I do what God put me here to do, that frightens me. Like not living fully to my extent, to the extent of my gifts and talents every day to justify why I do what I do, which is why I've written 24 books in 28 years. I'm in one sense, I'm trying to justify being here, taking breath. Somebody's not here. Somebody's not breathing. Somebody's not living. Somebody died. Somebody anonymous who never got fame or celebrity gave up their lives. And I knew their story, or I know their struggle. Ordinary Black people come up to me and say, please keep speaking for us. So the thing I'm afraid of is not death, but not doing what I'm supposed to do while I'm in this spot, in this space to fully represent. So that's what
that brought me to tears, and I did not expect it. And I know you would probably never quote her, and not because she's not great, but you live in the world of hip hop. But as the great Bonnie Raitt said, scared to run out of time. Oh, and you will not run out of, it's one of the most beautiful songs. It is one of the most beautiful songs ever written. You will not run out of time. You are not running from anything. What is it, Lil Wayne? I'm not, what is the song where you say, I've never been afraid, but I'm not going to pick the day to start running. I can't say the word. I ain't never ran from it. And I damn sure didn't pick the day to start running.
Yes. Cameron Hall dropping Lil Wayne.
You will not run out of time, and you are not running from anyone. And we are running to anywhere that you can buy a book, online, in person, support small bookstores, Politics and Prose bookstore. That is what we're talking about. Go get the book, order it now.
As the Wicked Watch, go pick it up. As the Wicked Watch, go pick it up. The great Cameron Hall, now she's a novelist. My God, what else is she gonna do? She's doing everything already. Lord.
I never ran from it, and I ain't gonna pick the day to start running, but I gotta go make dinner for my child. I love you so much. Congratulations on this phenomenal book. Thank you to Politics and Prose Bookstore for hosting this experience. We appreciate you, and I hope we can do this again soon.